Here we have the inside of the 2020 Elddis Majestic 285. If we firstly come to the main control panel, you'll see here we have the master button, so 12 volt off, 12 volt on. Beside that we then have water pump on and off. We need the water pump on to be able to get water out of the taps, flush the toilet and fill the boiler if it's been drained. We then have the main isolator for all of the onboard lights. These can then all be individually turned on and off on their own switches. And then lastly we have awning light on and off just here. All other information is then given via scrolling on these two arrows. The camera does not pick up this liquid crystal display particularly well, so I'll explain what I'm seeing as I'm going through. So currently it's displaying the time, and in the top corner here it's just letting us know we have main supply connected. If we now press, it's now giving us a fresh water level. After that it's then giving us a waste water level. After that we then have the settings menu. If I now press enter, I can now go into that menu, and we have contrast of the screen, whether we would like button beeps on or off, how quickly this control panel goes back into standby when we're not pressing any buttons. We then have water level alarms, so for when your fresh water is low and when your waste is high, on and off. An alarm if you lose mains electricity, and then alarms if either of the leisure battery or the vehicle batteries get low. And then lastly, exit back to the main menu. After that we then have condition of the leisure battery, and then back to the beginning again. Above this control panel we then have the control panel for the Aldi heating and hot water. We turn the panel on just here. On initial startup it will let you know if you have main supply connected, and will give you an internal temperature of the motorhome. If I now press menu, it will bring up its basic functions just here. So along the top here we have the thermostat for the heating, so just plus and minus, just pick whatever temperature you would like it to be inside the motorhome, and it will go right the way up to a rather toasty 30 degrees. Beneath it we then have a shower head, and this is for hot water. So currently hot water is off. If I now press the plus button, hot water on, and if I press it for a second time, hot water in boost mode. Boost mode is handy if there's going to be more than one of you having showers in quick succession of each other, or if you just like a longer shower. If you do perform the boost and the heating's running, it will turn the heating off as it needs that extra power. So we have heating and hot water. At the moment neither of these are active because we haven't given it a power source yet. So we have a lightning strike here for mains and a little flame for gas. So if I now want to use the system on mains, I now press the plus button, and we can run on 1 kilowatts, 2 kilowatts or 3 kilowatts. So just dependent on the ampage of the site you're on to stop yourself from possibly tripping. If I now turn this back off again, and we highlight the flame, we're now running the system on gas. And if we have both power sources available to us, we can also run the system in dual fuel mode. This particular mode is very handy in the winter months if you want to get up to temperature nice and quickly, and it will only use the gas as it is required. If we now press the little cog button just here, we have the settings menu. So the first one here with a little picture of the moon is the night timer. So we can turn the night timer on and off up the top here. We can then set the temperature we would like it to be at night time. We can then set when we want night mode to begin and whether it's for all days of the week or just individual, and then when we would like night mode to end. We can also, by highlighting this one, invert the backlight throughout that period. So this screen here goes to black and the writing goes to white. And we can also tell the boiler that we do not want any hot water produced throughout that period. This is very handy, especially if you're only using gas. That way you're not heating up hot water when it's not massively required, thus wasting gas. If we now come back out, we then have a sun, which is the day timer, so exactly the same again, but just for the daytime. Prioritises what the system prioritises in using when in dual fuel mode. So, as I said, at the moment, it favours main supply over gas, so it will only use the gas as it's required. If you are on an extremely low amp site, you can flip it on its head so it consumes more gas, less electric. We then have brightness of the screen. We can invert the backlight all the time if we want to. This one is not used on this particular model. If we're going to be using timers, we need to set the time, and we set the time and the day of week just here. If we now arrow down, majority of these are only for the workshop. We can activate this one, which I'll show you in a moment. We then have Antimicrobial. If you're going to be using this, it needs to be highlighted like it is now, but you also need to be using night mode, and then what will happen is at about 2-3 o'clock in the morning, the boiler will come on, rapidly heat up and kill off any bacteria that may be in the system. We then have temperature offset just for the onboard thermostat, so if you don't think it's quite correct, you can slightly adjust it. High altitude mode just here. So if you are using the motorhome 1,000 meters above sea level, you can activate this and then the system will run better at that particular air pressure. We then have button beeps on and off. Instead of having multiple timers, you can just have one delayed start and stop to the system. We then have pump settings, just leave it on thermal. We only want the fluid to be running through the radiators when it's required. Factory reset, so if there is a problem with the control panel, you can reset it just here. External start is not on this particular model, but at any point you could have a sim box added and then control it via an app. Language. Service, again more for the workshop, but if you press it, it will let you know what everything is up to. So you'll see at the moment that the water temperature is at 14 degrees, now gone up to 15. And then we have the glycol temperature just here for the radiators. We then have installed accessories, and in here, this one is particularly handy, which is the load monitor. If we now go back up again, you'll see that this is now activated, and if I click on it, if you arrive on site and you know how many amps the site is, you can select on here. So let's say we're on a 10 amp site. It now doesn't matter that I ramp it up to 3 kilowatts. The system will limit itself and stop you from tripping. Because we've now activated it, it's become an activated function, so it's available here. And if we now click on it again, we can now either turn it up, down, or back off again. The Aldi boiler itself is just located underneath the single bed just here. So if we now just remove the mattress, we can now see the Aldi boiler just here. You will find tucked just down here is the boiler drain valve. So to drain the boiler down for winterization, make sure that the water pump has been turned off, and then just flick the lever up just here to drain all the water out. To fill it back up again, flap it back over, and you can hear at the moment, because I've left the water pump on, that the water pump is now pulling water out of the fresh water tank and repriming the system. If the system has been fully drained down for winter, so we've drained down the fresh water tank, waste and this, I then always suggest that you've opened up all of your taps inside as well, which will release any airlocks in the system. So when filling back up again, once the water pump started running and filling this up, I then always suggest opening your taps up to push all the air out of the system. Once they're running freely, close them back up again, and then the system will fully prime. Also underneath here, we have the water pump just here and the surge dampener. And here we have the consumer unit, so we have the battery charger just in the back here, so try not to put anything over this or otherwise it will overheat. And if we now drop the front, we have the front of the consumer, so we have all the trip switches just here, so we have the 3 individual MCBs, the main RCD and test button just here, so if anything's not working on main supply, just check to see whether or not you've tripped in the van. We then have the 12 volt fuses just here, and again they're all labelled up, so if something's not working on 12 volt, just see whether or not a fuse is blown. And then, as this is a fully winterised motorhome, both the fresh tank and the waste tank have heaters in, and you'll find the isolator switch for that just here. You'll see it's currently in the on position, so if there's water in the tanks and the outside temperature drops below 3-4 degrees, the tank heaters will come on. If you do not want them to come on, you can just flick it off just here. In the overhead locker just here, we have the solar panel regulator. We do not need to do anything with the regulator. It will just let you know what it's up to with the light just here. So you'll see at the moment it's a solid green light letting us know that the leisure battery is either full or as good as full. So it's just letting you know it's in float mode. Whenever it's popping a charge into the battery, this will steadily flash green. If you ever come to this and instead of it steadily flashing green, it's more strobing, it's letting you know the solar panel is working, but there is only a very small amount of UV light, so it's only doing a minimal amount. Also in here we have the television aerial. So we have the digital amplifier just here, on and off on the side, control the boost just here. And then we have the actual teleco aerial itself just here. To use, undo the collar and then push the television aerial up and move it into the position that you require, and then lock it back into place. Never over tighten these collars because you can split them. If you still need to do additional tuning, we can flip the aerial from the horizontal to the vertical just by turning the tail. Do make sure that the aerial is back down again for travel. Televisions themselves just stand just on here, and then depending on whether you're running a mains TV or a 12 volt television, just plug in at these points here, and then the aerial fly lead just in here. Next we have the microwave. As it shows on the sticker, it's advisable to remove the plate for travel. It is plugged in just up here, and then it behaves like most normal microwaves. You have your quick start and stop just here. Power setting, flick between wait time and defrost, and then just depending, obviously if you twist at the moment it will give you time. Beneath it we then have the hob, so we have the electric hot plate that will, again like the microwave, work on main supply and is operated on this just here. Everything else is gas, so it's push in, twist and press the igniter. Beneath it we have the grill, and again push in, twist and push the igniter. And then the oven. Beneath the oven we have the plug plugged in there, which is just for the hot plate, and you will also find 2 gas isolation taps just here for the cooker and hob and the fridge. They're both in the on position, and I always say they can stay like that. Any of the gas taps inside the van can stay in the on position. I always say if you did smell gas in the van, always just go to the source and turn the gas bottle off. Beside the cooker we then have the Dometic Fridge, on and off just here. We're currently running on mains supply with a little picture of the 2-pin plug. If we want to run the fridge on gas, just press the flame. This will then automatically ignite itself. If it fails to light, it will start to beep at you and you will get a red flashing triangle just here. If you think it's just down to there being a bit of air in the system, you can press this as it says on here and it will reset and then try again. Next we have 12 volt maintain for when we are driving to keep the fridge cold. If I now press this, it will beep at us at the moment because we haven't got the engine running. We then have temperature control just here, and then push down to open. We then have the removable freezer box just here. The clips are just underneath to slide it out. We also have a venting point. If we slightly push this and slide it out, we can then hold the door on a jar for when we're not using it, and then back off again like so. As I said, most of the lights in the van all have their own switches. This particular switch, however, is not for lights. If I now flick this one, it will turn a fan on, which is located just behind the passenger seat just here. This is very handy if you have the Aldi heating on. What it will do is take some of the heat from the pipeworks and then blow warm air into the cab area, because the whole of the motorhome is double glazed apart from the front windows, so it will just help to keep the front end warm. Above my head we have the Omnivent Fan. So to use this, wind the roof vent up, middle button then turns the unit on, and then we have arrows out for extraction, arrows in for cooling, and it's variable fan speed just by pressing. Do make sure that all roof vents are closed again for travel. Also on the roof we have the carbon monoxide alarm and the smoke alarm. These are all battery operated, so just press the buttons every now and again just to make sure that they are working. And then we also have in the roof the Pir sensor for the alarm, and again just press the button and it will flash for a little while just to check that it's working, because again this is also wireless and does require a couple of batteries. If we now move into the washroom, we have the shower just here. Do make sure that the shower screen is clipped back for travel. We then have the basin just here and the Thetford toilet. The bowl swivels all about. Open to the cassette on the grey lever just here, and then push to flush on the blue button just here. Level indicator just here to let you know when the cassette needs emptying. And if the cassette is left open, which I'm now going to close, but if it's left open and you try to remove the cassette from the outside, it will not come out. So if you do feel resistance, just come back inside and see if somebody's left it open. If we now go into the wardrobe, we have the header tank for the Aldi heating system. We just need to make sure that the fluid is between the minimum and the maximum. Always take your reading once your heating is up to temperature, as it will expand in the tank. If it does need topping up, you can do this yourself if you wish. Just make sure that you do get the correct pink Aldi top-up solution. It's always advisable just to slightly loosen these screws off. Take this front faceplate off, and then just sitting just here where my hand is, there's a cap which you can then unscrew and then add your top-up. The front bed is nice and easy to make. If I firstly just remove some of the cushions, we can then slightly lift up just here and then pull across. And then if we do exactly the same with the other bench seat and then pull this across, and then it's just a matter of pulling the cushions out. I do sometimes always suggest that it is a better idea to actually flip the cushions over. But if we now slide them like so, we have the majority of the bed. You will see, however, that we have a slight gap just here. This is because this motorhome is based on the Alco chassis, so it is slightly wider. So we have an infill cushion just here which will all fold out and then drop into the gap. Tucked underneath both bench sheets we have the two travel seats. You also have the option of adding a second leisure battery underneath the floor just here. And the main leisure battery itself is located underneath the other single bed. So we have leisure battery just here. And then second leisure battery just here.